Minutes. This is quite a turnout. We're going to have to get some more chairs because we have more people who want to come in. So please be patient. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. During this session, and if you need a mask, there are masks over there on the table by the door. There's also hand sanitizer there, and also the restrooms are on either side of the door as you go out. The men's restrooms on the left and ladies on the right. Coming in? Yeah? No? Go ahead. All right. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the candidates forum for the position of the mayor of Colonial Beach. There will be another forum tomorrow night of 6 candidates running for the 3 positions on town council. These forums are planned and presented by the Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce and the Colonial Beach Community Foundation. I'm Eric Nelson, the president of the Colonial Beach Foundation, and I'm joined by Carrie Geddes, the president of the Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce. It does take a village to put on something like this, and I want to thank the school system. Thank you, Mr. Turner, for allowing us to be here, and for all the support that the school has given. I'd also really like to thank Paul Patel for providing the sound system. Thank you, Marty. And for the town staff for making the video, the Facebook Live happen, and also for WWER, because this has been broadcast on WWER and also been broadcast on Facebook Live. But I'm so impressed with this turnout. This is really a good sign for this town that there are so many people interested in hearing about the mayoral candidates. So there are a few guidelines that will be observed during the forum. This is not an audience participation event. All questions for individual or for all candidates have been received by this time. There are no questions recognized from the seated audience. As an aside, we actually received over 200 questions from the residents between the 2 forums. I want to thank all the residents for providing all those questions. They were all very interesting and insightful, so I appreciate all of that. Questions may be directed, questions will be alternated between the candidates. Questions may be directed to a candidate specifically or all in general. The candidate receiving questions will be given 3 minutes to answer the question. the other candidate will have 2 minutes for amplification or rebuttal. For questions directed toward a specific candidate, there will be no rebuttal or comment by other candidates. A candidate may receive a follow-up question at the discretion of the moderators. There is no rebuttal from the other candidates to follow-up questions. Candidates will begin with an opening statement of 5 minutes and finish the evening with a closing statement of 5 minutes. And then that will leave approximately 90 minutes to be devoted to questions and answers. And again, I will ask you to respect others in the room and to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 virus by wearing a properly fitted face mask and maintaining at least a 6-foot personal separation. So let me go ahead and introduce the candidates that we have before us in alpha order. I'll introduce Mike Fitzpatrick and Robin Schick. I think we've all seen their signs, and so they're already pretty familiar to us, but we'll go ahead and let the candidates begin with an opening statement. And Mr. Fitzpatrick, if you'd like to go first.
I would. Thank you very much, Eric, for the opportunity to be here tonight. And just before I start, I thought it might be nice if we could send our thoughts and prayers to all the citizens of the Gulf Coast who are going to be impacted by that hurricane tonight. So I know that they're all in our thoughts and prayers. But good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. And also thanks to all of you who are tuned in online. I'd like to start by giving a little background on me and why I'm running for mayor of Colonial Beach. And then following that, I'll focus on what I consider to be 3 of the major topics that are key to this election and why I believe that I'm the best candidate for Colonial Beach right now. I'll start with a brief history. My wife Joan, who's in the audience here, and I purchased our first property here and moved to Colonial Beach in 1997, along with our 4 daughters, who are all grown now and have given us 7 grandchildren, 4 of whom attend the Colonial Beach schools here. We purchased the plaza, which is a large 100-year-old Victorian, and we spent 3 years doing a top-to-bottom renovation, both inside and outside, and opened that bed and breakfast for business in the year 2000. We purchased multiple other properties and operated a very successful business hosting visitors to Colonial Beach for over 18 years. While Joan devoted 100% of her time to the business, I was working full-time as a biotech executive managing global commercial businesses. I traveled extensively, negotiating contracts in the US, Europe, and Asia, and returned home on the weekends to help run the B&B and the cottages. During the first 7 years, Joan and I were very involved in the town. I was on the Planning Commission for 4 years and was chairman for 2 of those years. We were active members of the Chamber of Commerce and were Business of the Year in 2002. We chaired many events in town, such as the Arts and Crafts Festival, and were very involved with the museum, the Historical Society, as well as our church. In 2006, I was promoted and was required to travel 48 out of 52 weeks per year and had to give up my position on the Planning Commission. That's why you haven't seen me so much until recently. Following a very successful 41-year career, I was able to retire in April of this year, 4 years sooner than I had originally planned. I now have the time, passion, and energy to give back to the town again and fulfill my longtime goal to be the mayor of Colonial Beach. Now for the 3 key reasons why I want to be your mayor and feel that I'm qualified. First, number 1, the town is at a major inflection point right now and has the opportunity to significantly expand our tax base through development. This requires someone with strong business and negotiation skills and the experience to drive deals to conclusion. It requires a strategic thinker and planner and someone who can build cross-functional teams and effectively interact with developers. My entire career has been commercially focused. I've managed large teams of up to 1,000 people and been responsible for over $1 billion in annual revenues. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar government and private industry contracts and been able to grow biotech companies from scratch through the IPO process, raising greater than $150 million. Unlike my opponent, I feel like I am uniquely positioned to bring these skills and experience to the table on day 1. Secondly, investing in our future is critical. If we're going to take Colonial Beach to the next level and make it the crown jewel of the Northern Neck, We have to make investments in our infrastructure, our employees, our schools, and our businesses. Every year of my career included the drafting and execution of a strategic plan and budget. My job as mayor and leader of this town will be to drive the execution of the new comprehensive plan through an annual goal-setting process and to hold people accountable for the achievement of their goals supporting this plan. I know that I can build a cohesive team in town where we're all focused on these goals starting in January of 2021. Third and finally, I have heard repeatedly how frustrated people are about the lack of transparency and the lack of citizen input into the decision-making process. We have seen examples of this recently with the Eleanor Park and Playground proposal. I have always and will continue to be an open, honest, and transparent leader. In my 40-year career, I led by example and kept the customer-first philosophy instilled throughout my organization. If I am elected mayor, you can count on me to put citizens first, starting on day one. I'm elected by you, the people. I'm not here to drive personal agendas or the agendas of special interest groups. The voice of our citizens will be heard and acted upon, and I will keep you informed of our progress. My open door policy is already in place and will continue for the duration of my time in office. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm looking forward to answering your questions and sharing my insights with all of you.
Ms. Schick, 5 minutes.
Hi, and thank you for being here tonight. It's nice to see so many familiar faces here in Colonial Beach. My name is Robin Schick, and I am your current vice mayor running for mayor of the town of Colonial Beach. I'm a little bit different than any other candidate that has ever run for this position. Not just because I'm a woman or because I'm a young mom, but because I am a drifter that also brings some experience and training to the job. Some experience and training that is specific to community development. When I graduated from UVA in architecture, I went and joined the Peace Corps, and there I served and was trained in community management and municipal development. I worked there for 2.5 years doing sanitation, street, and municipal projects, and then I came home and got involved in my community. I joined the Planning Commission, which I served for 9 years. I chaired 3 of those years, enacting term limits, so I couldn't keep doing it. And then I attended more training when I became vice mayor and joined the town council through the Incremental Development Alliance and different kinds of community training through DHCD and whatever I could do through VML as well. I'm also the revitalization facade designer for the towns of Warsaw and the town of Callio. And if you've seen their progress come forward, which I think a lot of that has been shared and they're doing so well, I have a lot of experience in those partnerships and in the things they've been doing there, and I want to bring a lot of that experience here to Colonial Beach. Drifter Pride led me to lead a life of service, a service to my community, because I saw a community that rallied for each other, that rebuilt here after Isabel, and it affected me throughout my life. I went on to volunteer and teach internationally, and then back in my community where I taught Spanish here at the high school and to adult education. I am dedicated to the job. I've been dedicated for the last 10 years here at Colonial Beach, and I have not missed many meetings despite having a child and nursing that child. I've missed 1 meeting. I have a lot of follow through. I take 1 step at a time to build on to the next step, and that's what it takes in order to achieve these goals. You can't just come in and expect everything to line up for you. You have to get partnerships, you have to work with the players, and each type of government institution has different resources, and I have the skill set and the partnerships with those built already. There are many things together that we are just on the brink of accomplishing, and I'd like to see those things with follow through. I want to protect our character and our culture. I am somebody who knows it. I work with all the nonprofits. I work at every event. I paint faces at chamber events and parades and everything that you can imagine. A lot of you have probably seen me out there doing those things. I am not going to sell us out. I am true to who we are. I have 3 generations here, and I care for our retirement community and our young families. I am an independent candidate who believes that Colonial Beach needs to come first, above and beyond all other politics, and black and gold is what I believe.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. You want- okay.
Already got it? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, how many council meetings have you attended during the past year, and how active have you been during those meetings?
So, as I mentioned in my opening, until April of this year, I had a job that required me to be away, and I've been pretty honest about that I have literally not been here. It's not because I don't want to go to council meetings. I've watched, since they became posted on YouTube, I've been watching them for years while I've been traveling. As soon as I came back, COVID hit, and the first couple meetings were not here. As soon as the meetings came back live, I've been at every meeting and most of the planning commission meetings as well. Prior to that, when I was in town for many years, I was at, many of you can attest to it, I was at every single council meeting that there was. I feel like I've been a vocal and active participant at those meetings early in my time here in Colonial Beach and more recently as I've been re-engaging in the town.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, do you feel that you will have a good working relationship with the town manager and his staff?
Absolutely. I spent time in the town offices just last Friday. We have a great relationship. It was Heather's birthday, and it was really nice to be a part of those things. Those build community, and I think that we have a good relationship, and we're building on it. We're growing people in our town staff. We are training them and working them up. People like Maggie, we are investing in, and they're investing back in this community, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, routine maintenance concerns continue to plague Colonial Beach. What are your proposed solutions regarding matters such as paving roads, street sweeping, litter management, appropriate signage, repairing sidewalks, etc.?
I'm glad you asked me that question. I think there's an awful lot that can be done to improve on what's currently being done here. And I think some of it, to be honest with you, in my opinion, is through a tighter control of management over our Public Works Department. I think there's some excellent people on that team, but there's also some people that maybe don't go above and beyond and take care of everything that needs doing. And I think that by understanding and having more goal setting that cascades all the way down to the individual into the individual public workers, that we will be able to develop a culture of caring about Colonial Beach and seeing what needs to be done and doing it. Now, in terms of the bigger things like sidewalks and the roads and some of the major infrastructure problems, those are obviously much bigger issues, and they require us to take a budgeted approach to them, and they need to be well thought out and be part of the comprehensive plan and then supported by the budget that's developed at the beginning of the fiscal year for the town. Do I think that our Public Works team is completely capable of doing all of that? Probably not, and I think we're going to have to carefully consider outside contractors for some of the bigger jobs to actually do it in a cost-effective and appropriate manner. I think we have an excellent Public Works team, and they're great at some things. I think they can be better by some tighter control and accountability to their job on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, same question. Routine maintenance concerns continue to plague Colonial Beach. What are your proposed solutions regarding matters such as paving roads, street sweeping, litter management, appropriate signage, and repairing sidewalks, etc.?
Those are some pretty regular maintenance issues for the town. And a big part of our problem has been the lack of incorporating new technology into public works. It wasn't until 2019 that we got Office 360 in the town. It wasn't until 2019 that we started budgeting with new admin software. And that's the same thing that we're trying to upgrade in Public Works. Right now, we're investing in learning a new software that will help place work orders a timely manner with priority in order to help the management there do their job better. And we should have been using this technology earlier. It's something that I look forward to investing in, and I think that it's going to bring us to the next level. I mean, it can't always be done on a post-it note. It's time to move forward on that.
I'm sorry, thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, the Planning Commission is a non-political volunteer organization which studies the needs of the community and makes recommendations to the town council based on the comprehensive plan. Do you believe in following the comprehensive plan, and what weight should council accept the recommendations of this commission?
When I was on the Planning Commission back in the early 2000s, I was part of the team that actually drafted the comprehensive plan that year. And what I can say is that at that time, we worked very hard as a Planning Commission to redraft from scratch the plan that had been in place previously and try to look ahead to the next 10 plus years. And what we did was, I think we worked very closely with the town council to make sure that we weren't going to present a plan that was a surprise to them and that there was, people were at odds over it. And I think it was part of that open dialogue and communication, and I think that made it successful for that 10-year period. But I think at this point, what we really need to do is make sure that this new plan, and we're going to have a new set of council members coming on board in January, there's got to be allegiance to that plan on both sides, and I think the council's got to carefully review it and get on board with it. And if there is pushback on certain points, then we may have to go back to the drawing board, redraft certain parts of it to make sure that it is aligned with what the vision and thinking is for the people that have been elected onto the new council.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, same question. The Planning Commission is a non-political volunteer organization which studies the needs of the community and makes recommendations to the town council based on the comprehensive plan. Do you believe in following the comprehensive plan, and what weight should council accept the recommendations of this commission?
Well, I agree with Mr. Fitzpatrick on the importance of the plan and how that really should guide all of our actions in the future, and how important it is for the council to take some ownership of the plan and to attach themselves to it instead of their own priorities. The vision statement for the new 2020 plan is on my card, so I'm pretty much a fan of it, I would say, considering I helped write it. I'm a little confused by his history, though, because he was not on the 1999 comprehensive plan rewrite. He didn't get on to the Planning Commission until the last month that was approved, although he did update it in 2003. But since then, it's been rewritten 3 or 4 more times. So the comprehensive plan that we are writing right now is a good one. It has a lot of things that we've been asking for 20 years, though. A lot of those things haven't changed, so it's time to get them done.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schick. Okay, Mr. Fitzpatrick, do you believe that affordable housing is an important part of the development of the downtown area of our town? If so, how would you achieve this goal?
I think when it comes to affordable housing, there are state laws and federal laws that are in place, and Colonial Beach needs to comply with what those laws are. I don't think in terms of the downtown development that was proposed to us at the last council meeting that affordable housing plays a significant role in that. I think, but as always, as we're courting developers and bringing new development ideas into town, affordable housing should be part of the discussion. But in terms of specifically your question, the downtown development that we heard about, I didn't see anything or hear anything there that necessarily would say that beachfront boardwalk property needs to include an affordable housing element to it, or that townhouse community that they were describing up on the old school property. It doesn't mean that it's not an important issue for Colonial Beach, but I didn't see it as part of that current development plan that was presented.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, same question. Do you believe that affordable housing is an important part of the development of the downtown area of our town? If so, how would you achieve this goal?
In talking with the development and the proposal in the downtown area specific, that's not a part of that plan. I do think that there is some affordable housing in that area now with some of the rentals and the types of multifamily units that are in that area, and that is vital and important to that district, and I support that. Affordable housing is a term that has been redefined in the last 20 years, and it used to be defined by Dave Combs as like subsidized housing or low-income housing, and I want to make sure that our audience understands that affordable housing is now defined by HUD as a household that can afford 30% of their income to pay for housing costs. So our average household here in Colonial Beach of workforce, young families, and retirement is between $35,000 and $65,000 a person. So they're talking about a $175,000 house. And I think housing like that is really ideal in the remainder of the number streets that are going to be built out between 8th and 9th. We need infrastructure to those areas to help this population grow in Colonial Beach, which is going to help our economy. We've got to have workforce and family housing.
Great, thank you, Mr. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, what type of business do you feel would most benefit the town?
I'm sorry, Gary, I couldn't understand that.
What type of business do you feel would most benefit the town?
Well, I think there's a couple of categories. There's what I would call the tourism business, and that goes maybe hand in hand with what we heard from the developers, from the Dotson Group. And I think those are things that would be put in place here to attract visitors to Colonial Beach and make it fun for our residents that are here. And I think that plays an important role, certainly as we continue to promote Colonial Beach as a destination for visitors to come. But what I would say is that beyond just the businesses that are associated with tourism, we need, as Colonial Beach, to maybe have an anchor business or two that would be helping to drive employment opportunities here in town. And I think we've got a lot of land that's along 205 there, part of Public Works and whatnot, that could potentially be used to offer incentives to a business to come to town here. And as we expand our tax base here in town and have more citizens that are potentially employable, that having and attracting businesses that are 20 plus employees or whatnot is part of the future of Colonial Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Any rebuttal, Ms. Schick?
To the
Question.
No, I think that we need small, unique businesses downtown. We need specific businesses that attract people in a way that Colonial Beach is the only place to get that. I think that's what makes us special. We don't need to compete with Dahlgren. We don't need to compete with Waldorf. We need to keep our quaint uniqueness here, but we do need to add some industry, and I think that would be better suited on 205 if that were to happen. And certainly other things that we can partnership with on that land that is out there.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Next question to you is, can you speak to your views on what you believe the balance should be between the time, resources, and money that are and will be spent on making the town look good and preserving, restoring historical features, as opposed to what should be spent repairing the infrastructure?
Sure. Infrastructure is the #1 priority of the town. It takes up the majority of our budget. We manage about an $11.5 million budget in town. That's water, sewer, and your general fund. Water and sewer take up about $3.7 million of that, and Public Works takes out about $1.5 million. With adjusting the water rates and some of our contracts with Westmoreland and growth there, we have had a net gain in 2020 of $1.8 million in that we need to invest in infrastructure, in the technology that it takes to track and follow our water lines, our sewer lines, and the damages that are done there in order to repair them. That is the #1 priority. But beautification is also important. People want to come to a community that's beautiful, that shows its beauty. They also will treat Colonial Beach in the way that Colonial Beach shows them to be treated. And so I do think that it's important to have beautification, although the majority of these are matched with grants. Our boardwalk revitalization, the facade design work I did in Callio and in Warsaw, those are all community development block grants. And so the match is minimal and worth the investment, considering that we're putting in, almost $5 million into infrastructure.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Can you speak to your views on what you believe the balance should be between the time, resources, and money that are and will be spent on making the town look good and preserving and restoring historical features, as opposed to what should be spent repairing the infrastructure?
I agree with a lot of what Ms. Schick said. I don't think this is an either-or situation, and I don't think it has to be one first necessarily and then the other. I agree with her that the prioritization has to be the infrastructure to support some of the immediate development that we're doing in town, but at the same time, we can certainly be doing things to beautify the town. And if this development project with Dodson goes through, I think they're going to lead the charge on a number of those things. But I would approach this from looking at it from sort of a phased in, where we look at where the priority needs are, especially for the infrastructure, where it's the worst. Where is it the 100-year-old infrastructure pipes and the fixing of those has been kind of kicked down, the can has been kicked down the road for decades and not necessarily fixing the issues. Some of those things have got to be prioritized and done. And at the same time, we can be working on this downtown area in terms of beautification. We have some wonderful folks in town, such as the Community Foundation and others, that are all about helping to support some of these beautification efforts. So I see this as a joint effort between foundation and community interest, people in town here that want to beautify the town, as well as the town making the proper investments in the infrastructure and courting development that will help pay for this beautification and growth issues in town.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, there has been some recent talk of having an open space park serving the people north of Colonial Avenue. Does the town have property that could be used or traded to appropriate space? How might you support the development of such a park?
That's a goal and priority that we have identified on the Planning Commission for a very long time. And it's certainly a goal that I personally have to do. With it takes probably the purchase of property that is also going to help us with stormwater retention. There's no reason to not kill two birds with one stone in that sense. Stormwater retention ponds are beautiful, and parks, trails, and those types of open space can go together. There is some small amount of land that we own in the north side of town. They're in individual lots or dead-end right-of-ways, things like that. I don't know that they can accommodate the kind of amenities that the north end of town really would capitalize on. I think we can do better than that. Also, the bike path has been on the Planning Commission and Comprehensive Plan for a very long time, and it has to go to VDOT. It is a VDOT road, and VDOT has funding for bikes, trails, and pathways, and there is no reason why we should not be submitting an application to VDOT. The problem is this takes a lot of time because VDOT works on a 2-year schedule. So you apply for it this fall, and then you get the money in 2 years from now. But certainly in the next 4 years, as mayor, I hope that we can accomplish that.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, rebuttal on that same question?
I am totally on board with green space for Colonial Beach and making sure that we have the right recreation facilities. But as I think many of you have probably been watching and hearing on Facebook, I think there's a balance there between what land that the town owns should become revenue producing property versus what should be recreational space. And I really believe that in terms of the south end of town, we're in actually very good shape. When the dog park gets completed, because that's a done deal from what I understand and is moving forward. But I think in terms of the north side of town, where we're greatly lacking some facilities that would be recreational and green space in nature. We have an opportunity through some of these development activities to make investments there and to incorporate them into some of the development that would be going on in the numbered streets. So yes, I'd like to see more opportunities for our children to have recreational facilities available to them. But on the south side of town, I think there's other priorities right now that in particularly include Eleanor Park and what we do with Eleanor Park to make that a revenue producing piece of income for the town.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Next question is yours. Some people feel that the Colonial Beach Volunteer Fire Department and the Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad are competitive for the same pot of money. Do you feel that these two organizations should be combined? And if so, do you feel that there should be a combined facility such as the one in King George?
Is that for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think what we have to take a look at is what's happening in the town here in terms of development and expansion of our population. What maybe has served the town appropriately for the past many decades, where we had our fire and rescue as separate entities, that may evolve and have to change as we start to add more citizens to Colonial Beach, as our population grows. And I think modeling Colonial Beach off of what other towns have done successfully with fire and rescue and law enforcement for that matter, we could learn a lot from what's been successful in other towns. So I'm supportive of revisiting what the future plans are for fire and rescue as we move forward and contemplate what's going to happen in terms of the expansion of our population here and act appropriately in terms of how I would specifically answer that question. For now, I'm not opposed to looking at it and investigating it, but I don't think we're at a crisis stage right now where a decision has to be made today or tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, any rebuttal?
Sure. Our fire department and rescue squads are both volunteer in town, and they are a big part of our community pride. The fire department parade is something I've looked forward to my entire life. Every single year, it's a big deal for us locals here, and the rescue squad as well. And they're independent. They are independent agencies within themselves. They have their own ways of making decisions like that. If they decide to partnership, that's up to them, and I would be fully supportive of that, but I certainly have no intention of forcing them together into a new facility. I think that we need to continue to support them. We need to support them probably more than we are now. It's something I have asked for actually in every budget, but haven't got it yet. And I look forward to supporting them both throughout my life at the fire that happened at the marina when I got off the school bus one day and all our fire department showed up there, to last week when EMS and fire picked up my grandfather to take him to the hospital. These are people I know and love, and I know that they really care about those agencies, so I think we should work together with them, and then also work with the county and show the county how it can be advantageous for them to invest in facilities and support here in town.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Next question is yours. On numerous occasions over many years, the Planning Commission has made recommendations to the Town Council to keep Eleanor Park a passive green space park. The Town Council determined 2 years ago that Eleanor Park cannot be sold without a supermajority vote, 6 out of 7, and has since then authorized the town manager to work with CB Green Space and others to turn it into a park. Given that, do you endorse the Planning Commission and Town Council's effort to keep it a green space park? If not, what options would you propose?
This is an issue that has had a lot of options proposed to it. Mr. Fitzpatrick proposed a hotel when he was on the Planning Commission, and I think I've been willing to look at every option that's out there, literally between making revenue or achieving a capital need, and we have a lot of capital needs, and so I think that park and that green space just needs to be put to use. It needs to do something to give back to our community, and I think green space has a place in town. but it's got to be activated, it's got to be programmed, it's got to do something. I don't think that it can just sit there as it is, certainly not in the no trespassing fashion that it's been. I will support any ink that goes on paper in the comprehensive plan for this space. I think that's a public process, as you mentioned before. That is the place that is non-political. I would like the Planning Commission to make a formal recommendation on how that public land can give back to this community, and then as mayor, that will be our goal to achieve.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. On numerous occasions over many years, the Planning Commission has made recommendations to the Town Council to keep Eleanor Park a passive green space park. The Town Council determined 2 years ago that Eleanor Park cannot be sold without a supermajority vote, 6 out of 7, and has since then authorized the town manager to work with CV Green Space and others to turn it into a park. Given that, do you endorse the Planning Commission and Town Council's effort to keep it a green space park? If not, what options would you propose?
This is obviously one of the more sensitive and hottest topics that's been going on in town here since the beginning of the year, and actually for over many years, to be honest with you. But it seems to have really come to a head of late when the proposal to put the playground there and kind of tie that land up was made at the council meeting. And I think there was a large public outcry that I think that hearing the voice of so many citizens here in town, especially people that live on the south side where this green space would impact them, I think the vast majority of spending some amount of money to upgrade Castlewood and keep it. I mean, so many people like that park, say good things about it. So in my, from meeting with so many people over the past few weeks here, I feel pretty strongly that there's a consensus here in town that Eleanor Park should be sold, and whether or not there is some element incorporated into it through development that includes some green space elements or whatnot, the vast majority of people think we should get the revenue for that town. I mean, $1 million or so, give or take, could make a significant impact on this town. And I spoke specifically with Mr. Jeff Howarth, because a statement was made at the last council meeting about all the challenges of developing Eleanor Park, that it wasn't buildable, that it was in a special floodplain. And after spending an hour with Mr. Howarth on the phone over the past 2 weeks, he assured me that it was subdividable, it was buildable, and there isn't anything different about that piece of land that couldn't be just like the rest of the community that's around it there. And I think based on that and based on the voice of the citizens, I am personally in favor of trying to make that a revenue producing property and selling it. I don't think the town should be in the business of holding real estate, especially a valuable piece of waterfront property like that.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. What will you do to support the arts in Colonial Beach?
Well, considering that I designed this 72-foot mural that was painted on the boardwalk for a decade, anything I can, pick up a paintbrush. I think that the Friday Art Walks are a missed activity here in town with COVID. I am growing my business and opening a new storefront down there, and so I'm really looking forward to being a part of the Art Walk myself, and am installing, track lighting and cool things to do that. The art community that we have here is one of our most cherished characteristics. It's something that makes us different from other towns, and it adds not just to a level of tourism, but to a sense of community, to see that expression by our community members and support them in that. So I'm very supportive of arts and performance arts also, not just paintings and sculptures.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. What would you do to support the arts in Colonial Beach?
I guess I would answer that question a little bit differently than Ms. Schick. I'm all for the development and revitalization of the downtown area, and particularly the boardwalk. I think it's one of our crowning, jewels that we have here in town, and it's been neglected and it's not anywhere near at the caliber that it could be. I visit so many little towns up and down the East Coast and whatnot that have really invested in their waterfront area there with a boardwalk and a better pier than we have right now. But I think the way to get that done is actually by partnering with the developers who are expressing an interest here in town. And it's so important that we negotiate as part of the business of selling that property that the town owns down there with the developer to work hand in glove to make sure that the vision that we have as citizens of this town in conjunction with the comprehensive plan is aligned with what these developers plan to do. And I think that's why it's so critical right now over this short-term period of time where we're talking to a developer like Dotson, that we really understand what they have in mind and that they're going to fulfill their commitments, and that the vision that the town has is aligned with that, and that we're asking for what we need from those developers to achieve our goals.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. What are your plans for economic development and tourism in Colonial Beach? What outcome metrics might you utilize to judge the progress of your programs?
The ultimate outcome measure is to become a Virginia Main Street program. And if you have been to a Virginia Main Street program like Stanton or downtown Fredericksburg, but there are much smaller ones as well, then you'll know what that means. It involves a level of partnership with the state that starts recuperating investment and rolling in on itself. So when we talk about economic development, I'm really talking about something that is community related, because that Virginia Main Street goal is all about community. In fact, it comes from the local entity of downtown Colonial Beach and growing them. We need to support and partially fund a director for that, and that will help us with economic development. We need to improve public amenities for our citizens around town. Golf cart paths, street lights in the meadows, our sidewalks, all of these attract economic development. They're going to attract people to come here and want to live here and expand not just a tourist season, but a full-time economy. We need a business development center. I am looking to partner with the SBA and an educational partner like RCC possibly, and bring in business development resources like classes and the things that supported me in my own business here in order to grow and have multiple employees and get a new storefront and help our existing businesses survive and flourish. And we need to stick to it. It's a one step at a time process. We can't restart this over and over again. We have to build one step at a time and move forward with the incremental steps that these state agencies have in order to get that done.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. What are your plans for economic development and tourism in Colonial Beach? What outcome metrics might you utilize to judge the progress of your programs?
Yeah. And again, I think Ms. Schick and I are more aligned on some things than we might have thought. But what I would add to what Ms. Schick said is that I think that there is also an element that involves the Chamber of Commerce and some of the foundations here in town, particularly the Chamber though, and building off of what's already been, I think, a fairly strong foundation of business owners that get together, have a board of directors. There's a formal structure in place already, and I think we have an opportunity to utilize the Chamber in conjunction with what the things that will be done in town to promote it, and the developers that we've got all working in conjunction with each other to present an image and to court businesses into this town that are bought into where Colonial Beach is going in the short term, mid-term, and long term. And I think it's really important that whatever disagreements that there are or things that exist between the Chamber of Commerce and Town Council or other elements in town. We need to all start working together as a collective group, have the vision that's part of the comprehensive plan for the town, and all be marching in exactly the same direction together. And if we all have our act together, and we can all work like that and all tell the same story, when we're courting people to come in here and develop, it's going to be really clear that this town is working hand in glove, and this is a good place to bring my business to.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Do you feel the town has taken appropriate COVID-19 precautions and enforcement in regard to the events and the use of public spaces? And with a follow-up is who should enforce it and how?
Sure. Well, I don't think it is a secret that I think the park should be open. I'm pretty vocal about it and pretty clear. I think it's vitally important to our mental and physical welfare. And but I also have a tremendous amount of respect for the role that the mayor has taken in this emergency situation and support for him. He comes from a emergency background. We are fortunate to have had that kind of experience during this time, and I think that as a vice mayor, that I support that, and honestly, glad he was here in this time for it. I've learned a lot from it. Our emergency action plan calls the mayor in to be the director of emergency management along with our town manager. And having this experience and seeing how that's run has been really vital to the kinds of things that will happen in the future, how to set up account funds and how to manage getting reimbursed for things that happen during emergencies, how to follow state CDC and local emergency management guidelines. I think coordinating with Bill Seats, our Westmoreland Management Director, is vital, and following those guidelines is first and foremost. And when you have to take on local steps for your community that are specific to your community, then that's where that gets involved. I would like to communicate emergency management across the board with town council, and I think that's something that would help the understanding and support that the entire council could give to those kinds of decisions. But I do think the parks should be open. I think they're getting open today or tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Do you feel the town has taken appropriate COVID-19 precautions and enforcement in regards to events and the use of public spaces? Follow-up question, who should enforce it and how?
I do, and 2020 has been a year that we will never forget. I mean, it has rocked all of our lives in some way. And I think when you look at Colonial Beach and what we have been able to do to prevent coronavirus from essentially entering this community, I think our town officials are to be commended. It was not easy, right? It was painful. We all wanted to go to the beach. We all would have liked to use playgrounds. There's so many things that we all would have wanted done, but we're not that different than any other community, in the United States. We're all suffering as a result of this, and we had to make sacrifices. I personally would rather err on the side of caution, and I think the fact that we operated under a state of emergency in alliance with what the state was directing our mayor to do, I think we did the right thing, and this season's been kind of written off, right? It's been very challenging. Even though we've had so many visitors come to town, we've had to make sacrifices, and we've had to police things a little bit more stringently than we had, and part of opening parks is one of those things, that the sacrifices that we had to make. But when you look at the result that we have almost no cases in Colonial Beach, I think we're very fortunate, and it points to the leadership making the right decisions and doing the right thing during this pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Next question, Ms. Schick. The town is located in a federally designated medically underserved area. What might be your plan to at least bring more consistent emergency medical services to our town?
Consistent emergency medical services. One, I think we're fortunate to see the county above us in King George grow, and I think some additional medical services are coming there. I don't know that Colonial Beach has a population base to offer the kinds of things that King George does to those medical services, and I think we understand that. However, I do think that we can attract things like an eye doctor and a dentist and some general practitioners to town by introducing ourselves, partnering ourselves, and finding some incentives to why they would come to Colonial Beach. Things like the Dotson development and having townhouses and condos in the beach that are going to create a vibrant community are going to attract professionals to open a business here, or maybe why they want to be here. I think that we need to capitalize on that and advertise ourselves to them and to other medical partnerships.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. The town is located in a federally designated medically underserved area. What might be your plan to at least bring more consistent emergency medical services to our town?
Yeah, and it's certainly a challenge that the town has faced for the 23 years that I've lived here. We've had waves of having fairly good, services available to us. When Dr. Dunn was at the medical center up here, I still go to him down in Warsaw after he left here. It's unfortunate we couldn't retain him. But I think to answer your question, I part of this is going to go hand in hand with the development that we're trying to get done in town here. And as you expand our tax base and bring more citizens, we can support more of the medical professionals that we want to come here to town that can actually successfully maintain a practice. So as part of what we're doing with these development activities and prioritizing them, at the same time, we should be starting to actually recruit and think about what we're going to do in terms of medical personnel, particularly a doctor, and as Ms. Schick said, a dentist, here in town, where we don't have to have folks traveling 30 minutes or 45 minutes away to go see a doctor. But it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. We have to have the demand here for them, and we need to be able to offer them some incentives to stay and maintain their residence here in Colonial Beach. And it's not an easy problem to solve, but I think honestly it goes hand in hand with the development and the growth of the town.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Do you think the annual expenditure of thousands of dollars for the seasonal palm trees on the public beaches is taxpayer money well spent?
Well, I do think we have some sponsorships for them. I saw the sponsorship sign the other day. So I appreciate the sponsorships that help offset any tax dollars. I would like to see tree plantings that are more permanent in nature, something that is reminiscent of what the boardwalk used to be like. I think that nostalgia is there still in our minds, and I think the shade aspect of it is important. I don't see why we can't do both, though. And I really mean that, because I was not necessarily a fan of the palm tree at first, and Eddie knows this, I would be smiling under that mask. But I see the value in tourism. I'm a business owner. I grew up at a marina, and people love it, and I can appreciate that, and I can change my mind about things. And so I'd like to see both. I don't know why landscaping has to be one way or the other, and I think landscaping along our beautiful Potomac River and our boardwalk is vital. So I would continue to support the palm trees, maybe in a little bit more modest way, and supplement that with some permanent trees that provide more shade effort along there.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Do you think the annual expenditure of thousands of dollars for the seasonal palm trees on the public beaches is taxpayer money well spent?
I personally love the palm trees. I think visitors that come to town here really notice them, and you hear lots of very positive comments about them. At the same time, though, I don't think that the town should necessarily fund them. I think there was an effort this year for people to sponsor a palm tree, and it was somewhat successful. I don't know exactly how many got sponsored versus how much was spent by the town there. But personally, I think that if we were to publicize the sponsoring of a palm tree more broadly and actually ask for help from the citizens, there's a lot of people that really like them, and even if you could buy half a tree or something, I think we could do a better job of getting sponsorships to fund them on an annual basis. I do agree with Ms. Schick about replanting some of the trees along the boardwalk there that we used to have that have been taken down or destroyed in the storms. We haven't done much, and as part of this whole revitalization of the boardwalk, I would certainly hope and imagine that developers are thinking about planting, substantial trees that give shade and bring back some of that year-round kind of atmosphere to foliage that we have lost over the years.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, would you support and implement twice monthly yard debris pickup? And would they support recycling, shredding of the material and the mulch that could be made available to the citizens for free?
Yes. Absolutely. I actually would support the pickup of more types of debris, and this is something I've discussed with our previous planning directors, that when you don't offer to pick up these things, that is when you see properties go into blight, because a lot of these people are either elderly or don't have a truck necessary to get it out of their yard or move it, or the ability or capability, and it's a very small service to give to our residents that helps beautify every neighbor, and we all appreciate it. And so I think a service like that twice a year seems reasonable, and we need to do things like that, as well as maybe picking up other things for people and on a schedule. Not that we're going to go out to everybody's house whenever they want, to do that, because that's not practical. But having a time in order to help our neighbors with these items, instead of giving them enforcement notices and violations and taking them to court. Right? Let's help them do that. It'll end up saving us money in the end.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Would you support and implement twice monthly yard debris pickup? And would they support recycling, shredding of the material and the mulch that could be made available to the citizens for free?
I totally agree. I think it's really helpful when the town comes around and you have a lot of debris. If you don't have the funds to be able to pay a lawn service to haul away that debris, as Ms. Schick said, it piles up in people's yards, or they start piling it along property lines, and then there's contention between neighbors, and all sorts of issues arise. And I think if the town were to offer that as part of the services, several times per year, in the fall and the spring, for being able to do that, and then turn that into mulch and make it available, that would be fantastic. And I don't think it would cost the town all that much money to add that as a service, and it would go a long way towards, I think, a lot of goodwill and solving some of the problems that we have with lots that are in more of a state of disrepair.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Are you in favor of adding a Department of Parks and Recreation to the town government? What would be its function, and how would it be paid for?
Well, we already have added it. We budgeted for it in the fiscal 2021 budget to begin forming a Parks and Rec department. It's something I'm very proud of. I think that the maintenance and groundskeeping of our public spaces, it's time for that to become something and not just a public works major task. And they need to be programmed, they need to have activities, and so in January of 2021, we have the position already in the budget to have a director of Parks and Recreation, and it's a modest, very modest salary, so I really appreciate whoever applies and does the job. You're going to have to love the town, you're going to have to love us, and you're going to have to love kids, and you're going to have to love recreation. But there are many people like that, and I look forward to meeting whoever gets the position.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Are you in favor of adding the Department of Parks and Recreation to the town government? What would be its function and how would it be paid for?
Well, I am in favor of it, and I think I've spoken with Mr. I on the council about this, so I think it's sort of serving in that, a bit of that position, representing the council in terms of parks and recreation. And I think it is a needed service that we should have in this town. I think there's been, obviously, through all of the playground discussion of late, it's obviously a hot topic for people, and there's some needs that we have that are unmet in town right now. But in terms of it being a significant budget, I don't think that it's right now in terms of being the highest priority for the town. I think there's ways that we can create park facilities on the north side of town, supplement what we've done on the south side of town here, and there's a lot of volunteers that want to help our children. The BAM group is one that goes above and beyond to look for ways to support our children and the youth in this town. And I think we could probably do this through somewhat of a part-time basis along with community volunteers to make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Do you think the code and ordinances of the town should be modified or enforced? If enforced, who should be responsible for this?
Can you read that question again?
Absolutely. Do you think the code and ordinances of the town should be modified or enforced? If enforced, who should be responsible for this?
Yes, they are and should be enforced. Now, I will say there's some outdated code that we are currently trying to fix. And one of these is curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and the enforcement of putting in curb, gutter, and sidewalk where maybe it doesn't make sense and under new construction, and that's something the Planning Commission is undergoing right now, is how it's better to handle that situation, because we certainly need sidewalks, but maybe we don't need it in the middle of somewhere that there is no other sidewalk, and we do need it in places where the sidewalk needs to be repaired. Zoning enforcement is critical, and Teresa Davis should be commended for her job in many ways, even though I'm sure that's not a favorable thing for some people. But I think that code enforcement is how we make sure that our town is come up to a standard, and that standard helps the quality of life of all of our citizens. And so it's crucial, critical, and we have zoning ordinances and we have rules in place, and we need to enforce them.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Do you think the code and ordinances of the town should be modified or enforced? If enforced, who should be responsible for this?
I think it's critical that we do a review of what the town ordinances are. I suspect if we went through them line by line, we're going to find quite a bit of things that are out of date and no longer applicable, and there's things that are missing based on the world that we live in today that probably have not been added. And as we move forward in this town with trying to promote tourism, expand the number of visitors coming to the beach here, and offering more services and recreation, I think it's going to be critical that we review those ordinances, bring them up to speed and to code in alignment with the state government, and that I think it's the duty of our law enforcement officers to enforce them. We certainly don't want to be a punitive town that is scary for people to come to at all. But at the same time, through proper signage and setting proper expectations and giving some warnings until people get used to what the new rules are, there's ways to ease into these things and make sure that we're protecting our citizens and putting the right codes and ordinances in place.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Water and sewer backups are a problem at times. What needs to be done to alleviate this hazardous condition?
Sure, water and sewer backups are a problem. And we have needed to fix this for quite some time. Part of it is budgeting the money in order to get it done, which is what we've been working on the last couple of years. The fact that we have a $1.3 million increase in water and sewer budgets that we haven't spent yet from last fiscal year in our preliminary numbers is great. That means that we're going to be able to buy the technology, and we're going to be able to buy the infrastructure in order to fix some of these things. Stormwater is a problem, though, that is not going to go away anytime soon. Not after my term, not in the next term, and it's something that has to be planned for and invested in on a consistent basis year after year in order to tackle the issue. I have a blog post about this that is pretty extensive, so I encourage you to go to my website, robin4cb.com, to learn more, because it's just a 2-minute answer. But mapping, the mapping that we're currently doing, we have a GIS technician, we have LiDAR mapping to a 1-foot elevation. Those are critical for creating stormwater management tools and setting the example in our own spaces, in our own municipal spaces, in order to protect our environment and providing areas for retention and selling the property downtown, because that property sale and that development with Dotson is going to create a large fund into our capital improvement plan, and that's going to be how we're going to get some of these things done as well. So we should continue to pursue state and regional assistance on this. There's a lot of partnerships, and that's how you get these things done, and those things are outlined in the blog post too in way more detail than I'll give tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Water and sewer backups are a problem at times. What needs to be done to alleviate this hazardous condition?
I've been meeting with our town manager several times over the past couple of months here to try to get myself up to speed and understanding the gravity of the issue. Clearly, it's a problem. Living on the point, and having a bed and breakfast and multiple other cottages, it's something that I experience often as an issue. And I think, as I said earlier this evening, part of it is a prioritization issue. From what I understand, we have 52 miles of road here in Colonial Beach, and we've been systematically kind of going mile by mile and trying to address the more serious problems. We're going to have to continue to do that, and based on the budget that we have available, we can move faster or slower on that. And as we bring developers in here and we can extract money from some of them for upgrading, especially in the downtown area there as they begin their developments, that's part of how we get that accomplished. But it's going to be a process that's going to take us years in all likelihood to be able to get done. And we have to look at where the more serious and grave problems are, address those first. From what I understand from Mr. Robertson is that we've got engineering crews here with cameras that are going down, looking at all the pipes. We saw some of that at the last council meeting, and I think that's a step in the right direction. We're not just putting Band-Aids on things where that there's cinder blocks underneath 100-year-old pipes that are disintegrating, trying to patch and hold things together. We're actually starting to replace and fix those. But 52 miles of sewer pipe and water pipe is a big issue for this town, and we've got to start. We have to stop kicking the can down the road, and we have to start systematically going after it mile by mile.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Do you believe that the mayor can represent the position of the town council on matters that the council has not taken up or stated?
Section 6-2 of our bylaws states that no individual action by any council member or mayor should result in the expenditure of public funds or without the approval of the majority of council. Our town manager does have the ability to reach out to all of town council for consensus, even without a meeting, just to see how everybody weighs in on an issue. So I think the mayor has some ability to make decisions on things that don't involve additional expenditures of public funds, because he is a leader, she is a leader, and represents a certain part of that council. But in the end, if we follow our bylaws, it should be a consensus of council on all public fund expenditures.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Do you believe that the mayor can represent the position of the town council on matters that the council has not taken up or stated?
Well, I agree that the mayor has to follow the rules. We can't have somebody going rogue and making decisions and making expenditures that have not been discussed or approved by the town council. I agree with that. What I will say is that the mayor is the spokesperson for the town and is the leader for the town, and I think helps guide and set the way that the council communicates to the community and to the public. And it needs to be done in a consistent manner and with as much consensus as we can get from the council. And that's really what I would hope to bring to this job as mayor, is the ability to bring a council together. We will have some new blood, on the council in January, and I think we have an opportunity to start fresh and to really work together in a very unified manner. We have a big job ahead of us to get done here in the coming years and to do this right. And I think the mayor plays an integral role in setting that, but in terms of expenditures and making road decisions, no, there's no room for that on any council.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Are you in favor of obtaining a historical designation for all or part of the town?
It's one of the most critical steps to attracting business and growing our economy. I think there's a lot of nostalgia in town, something that I love about Colonial Beach. It's probably what brought me back here. And the architecture in town is unique to Colonial Beach. And if we tear it all down, then we're going to lose that identity. And our identity here is very important. The problem is, as an architect, it's very expensive to remodel a 100-year-old home or a building that has been vacant for 20 or 30 years. And sometimes the expense of that gets in the way. The historical designation provides tax credits, tax incentives to developers or to homeowners in order to restore their homes, in order to preserve this quality that we have. And it's critical. And it's critical for as many places in Colonial Beach as we can get it. I think that the downtown district, which is where we already have an agreement and is already the surveys underway, I think the contract went out last week, and so they should be defining a surveyor now. That will go into effect June of next year. That is a contingency, for development. I mean, if we don't provide these kinds of incentives to keep these buildings like the old bank building that are important to us, that are important to that community and to the economy down there and what we want that to look like, and then I think we're going to lose what Colonial Beach is. And I don't think we want Myrtle Beach. I think we want Colonial Beach. So historic preservation and that survey is crucial to that.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Are you in favor of obtaining a historical designation for all or part of the town?
Having renovated a 100-year-old Victorian house in this town and tried to really maintain the integrity of that and modernize it, but not change it, I can attest to what the cost is and the effort, and trying to find people that can actually do that kind of work is a huge challenge. So it's a balancing act, to be honest with you. I think that, yes, some of the important buildings in town, such as the bank building on Hawthorne there, is an example of something that we want to maintain and that it's worth making that kind of investment in. When I listened to the Dotson group, I personally was really pleased and encouraged to see that they had looked at the town and had looked at some of the architecture throughout town and were doing their best to build new structures that were going to be keeping with the vision and the integrity of what the town originally was. And I think that's the right compromise, is to, if you're going to build, work with a builder who has, again, part of the vision for what the town sees going forward for our downtown district, and not having them build, glass and modern, looking things in the downtown area, but keeping with the integrity of what I think so many of us love about this town. So to answer your question, I think it's a bit of both. There are certain structures that we should make the investment in, but overall there should be a vision for what the image of the town should be, and that should be part of our discussions with developers.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. Non-metered residential parking is a current problem for homeowners in town. What is your plan for beach parking if the town-owned parking lots are sold as rumored?
Yeah, this is a big issue. Displacement is also a big issue. It's things that we're talking about we're talking about displacement and parking right now, and I have asked the Planning Commission to help develop a parking plan for the downtown district, and that's critical and crucial. We have ordered more meters, and so there's a plan to implement meters in the downtown, which will help with the residential portion, because if you have a town sticker, if you're a town resident, then you don't have to pay at the meter, you get to park, wherever you like. And it will help guide people to the lots. Then why would they park 3 blocks away just for free parking? If they're gonna have to pay anyway, then they'll go park in the lot closer to their destination. We need to develop the lots that we have downtown. We have a couple of lots that we haven't fully developed because we have the Wilder parking lot. Also, we're negotiating, we'll talk with Dotson and see what needs to happen with parking. They are open, they said in their presentation, they're understanding the issue of parking and how that's gonna need to be accommodated down there. So I think a parking plan needs to be in the comprehensive plan, metering throughout downtown, and understanding business needs though. Having a plan where 15-minute parking in front of Nancy's is okay, because we all know we gotta go get our ice cream, and we need to support businesses that require that. And the churches, Sunday parking, things like that. So it doesn't have to be a blanket statement, but a plan in action will help with that. And I don't think that's just my decision, that's something that we have the Building and Zoning Department and the Planning Commission also to help with.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Non-metered residential parking is a current problem for homeowners in town. What is your plan for beach parking if the town-owned parking lots are sold as rumored?
Well, I agree that this has been sort of an unusual year. We've seen probably the highest number of people coming here on a consistent basis, weekend after weekend, and even during the week, we're seeing the Erving Avenue parking meters, be relatively full. A lot of the weekend stuff that we've seen this year, we only saw a few weekends a year when it was like really hard to find a place to park. I suspect that some of that parking issue is going to continue, now that people have discovered and found Colonial Beach and like it and are going to want to keep coming back here. So we clearly have to address this. And I don't mean to repeat myself, but I think, again, this is part of what our development plan needs to be. So many towns that I go to have a parking garage that's got 2 or 3 levels, and it really serves the need of a community about this size quite well. And I think if this is a discussion point that we could be having with the developers for utilization of some of the existing parking lots right now by making them a 2-story or potentially 3-story parking garage, those are things that we should be considering right now, so it doesn't have to be a flat level and going up and down side streets. If you can direct people to a central location that's reasonably priced and easy access to the beach, I honestly think that it's not that difficult of a problem to solve.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. How would you support the future development of Colonial and Washington Avenues according to our comprehensive plan?
Sure. Well, first I wanted to clarify that the historic designation doesn't cost the town any money. I think that maybe there's a misconception about that. That is a survey and designation done for tax credits from the state and federal government. And that agency is doing that, and that we got a grant for it that was matched by Downtown Colonial Beach. And then we got a second, I think we're in the running. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm pretty sure that we have it. We do. Okay. It's like $100,000 grant for that historical designation. That is critical to developing the boardwalk, Colonial Avenue, Washington Avenue. There are some simple things though that we can do along that area. Signage and treescapes, tree canopy, which we're working with a group right now through the RAF program to create some treescaping along Colonial Avenue, and creating an incentive program to get the gravel off Colonial. I think that we can do something to join forces or communally work towards not having gravel driveways or gravel parking lots on Colonial Avenue, paving them, making them formal, or having pervious pavers or some sort of attractive parking and driveways will really help Colonial Avenue, and that's just a simple step, but there are several simple steps like that that get us on our way to the bigger things like putting our street lamps underground, or our power lines underground, and having nice street lamps, and those bigger steps.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. How would you support the future development of Colonial and Washington Avenues according to our comprehensive plan?
I have to admit, I don't know what's in the new comprehensive plan that's coming, so I think to answer that, I'd probably have to know a bit more about exactly if there has been something proposed by the Planning Commission. However, that being said, in terms of Washington and Colonial Avenue, I think, they're obviously our main arteries, in and out of town, and I think that trying to make sure that people understand, we've started now with some signs and some things telling people how far the beach is and things like that is part of that. I think we have to be really careful to consider what we're going to do if we start putting, parking along Colonial Avenue coming in, especially on weekends where there's a lot of traffic and whatnot. We need to really make sure that what the comprehensive plan is calling for is aligned with where we're going to go with that. But I think the main things that I see for Colonial Avenue and for Washington Avenue are along the lines of what we're talking about, of this downtown revitalization, where we have nice storefronts, we have businesses that are attractive. Your first impression coming into town is not an abandoned motel, or we have to do more, starting with the entryway into Colonial Avenue there, to make the town attractive. The signs or the flags that we put up are certainly a step in the right direction there. But I think there's a lot more in terms of trees, in terms of flags along the beach, along the sides there, making sure that we work with the businesses and don't have any blight or boarded up abandoned sorts of buildings, that we take action against those. But most importantly, we incorporate this into where we see the town going in terms of development for new businesses coming in, and we take that opportunity to improve the overall image of Colonial Avenue and Washington Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, next question. As both of you have discussed, recently a development company announced that they were coming to town to develop a number of town parcels. As the plans now stand, what do you like about them? What gives you concerns?
I have to be a little bit careful because I am on town council and I respect closed session. The concerns that I've heard from my community members that I echo are how to make sure that this becomes a reality. That if we do like it and they are a good fit for our community, that how do we ensure it happens? Because as we have seen, the development that was approved when you were on the Planning Commission, 900 homes over there, nothing ever happened with. And the Arnold Palmer Golf Course isn't there for anybody. So if we are going to sell public land, we have to create assurances for this. And it's something that I'm absolutely committed to doing, working with them. I will say the things that I really do like about the Dodson Group is that they seem to have a good energy to them. They have a good background as far as community development and understanding how their development is going to affect the community and sense of community. I think they understand how indoor-outdoor space is important on the boardwalk with the way they've designed that section, and looking at the old Colonial Beach Hotel, respecting our culture, our heritage, and understanding the importance of mimicking that, going around and taking pictures of architecture in town. And then, they've revised their visuals several times now based on feedback. Colonial Beach is about porches. I have a porch, you have a porch, everybody has a porch, we love our porches. That was something that they got as feedback, and they put that in. And they understood that, they heard us. And so I think the communication there is good. I like that they're receptive to it. I like that they're willing to come to the public meeting and take public, comment right off the bat on their first introduction. And I think that we need to see them back into town many more times. I mean, this is if this is going to go forward, if it works out, then we need to have a good relationship with each other. And I think that they are holding their hand out saying, you know, I'd like to have a good relationship with you. So I'm hopeful, but also skeptical in ensuring that our public property does indeed get what is expected.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. Recently, a development company announced that they were coming to town to develop a number of town parcels. As the plan now stands, what do you like about them, and then what gives you concerns?
And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not maybe as in the know as our council is about this, because what I saw was what they presented at the town council meeting. That's the depth of my knowledge about that. So what I liked was their passion and enthusiasm, that the owners seem to have a personal interest in truly wanting to see Colonial Beach turn around, and he wants to live here and be part of that townhouse community. I mean, that kind of speaks volumes, that if you have someone that's willing to move here, his family here, and have a vested interest, it means that he's probably pretty serious about really wanting to do this. But as Ms. Schick said, it's not over till it's over. And I think the negotiation process is absolutely crucial right now. And I think as much as we all want this to happen, we have to be sure that it's aligned with what our comprehensive plan is in terms of the phased development that he outlined for us. Those 4 phases are aligned here and keeping with what the town wants to see and expects in terms of revitalization and development like that happening. But I think overall, conceptually, I think they did a beautiful job. I think they spent a lot of time looking at the town and trying to build something that was attractive and made sense for our boardwalk area there. And they recognized the need for some additional businesses and restaurants. I liked all of those things. I think having a nice, beautiful townhouse community up on the hill there with a pool that becomes like kind of a shining star there in terms of a very nice, well-manicured development as you come around to Colonial Avenue. Those all sound incredibly attractive. But I think that the major thing is we've got to get this deal over the finish line and make sure that as part of our negotiations with this developer, that we're watching out for the interests of town here, and that we're asking for all the things that need to be part of that contract, and such as some of the infrastructure that needs to be invested in and things like that all needs to be part of this negotiation, and that they're in full agreement with that before we proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. This will be the last question. Ms. Schick, what do you consider the top 3 concerns are of the town in the future?
The top 3 concerns are stormwater management, our growth rate, because that is going to really affect services and needs in town, and creating a community that reflects Drifter pride. Should I elaborate on that?
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Okay. Mr. Fitzpatrick, same question. What do you consider the top 3 concerns are of the town in the future?
I talked about this a little bit in my opening statement, and I think, honestly, one of the most mentioned things that I have gotten from citizens that have been calling me throughout this campaign process is the concern that they have over transparency and communication in this town. And I think people feel very frustrated and disenfranchised from having their voices heard. And I think it is a concern, and I think what happened at Eleanor Park, whether it was right or wrong, people felt like they did not have their voices heard before a deal was done, and I think that's a major concern that I hear. The other thing is our infrastructure, our public works ability to keep up with all of the challenges that we have here from an infrastructure standpoint. I mean, that is the other phone call that I think I'm getting more than any others is people saying, what are we going to do to help with this issue? What investments is the town going to be making going forward? So that's probably the second one that's certainly been the most vocalized to me. And I think the third is the people wanting to see something done with our downtown historic area. They want to see our boardwalk turned into a beautiful thing that we can be proud of. And they want to see the investment made in shoring up some of the things that have happened towards the north end of the boardwalk there, where it's just disintegrating into the river. They want to see things cleaned up, not a cracking concrete boardwalk there, but something that's improved there. So I think those are the three things: the transparency and communication and voice of the citizens in town, and the infrastructure investment, and third is going to would be the beautification of the boardwalk and revitalization of downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, 5 minutes for closing.
Oh, I go first and I'll go. Okay.
Actually, we were going to have her go second.
Got it, okay. Mr. Fitzpatrick, 5 minutes on closing, please.
Sure. Okay, thank you. All right. So in conclusion, I hope that you've seen tonight that I really am completely committed to the growth and well-being of Colonial Beach. I have the experience, the maturity, and the business skill set to be the leader that this town needs right now. I will professionally represent the voice of our citizens and work with the developers to take Colonial to the Beach to the next level, returning into a town of prosperity and a town that we can all be proud to call home. Now that I'm retired and my children are all grown, I have the motivation, energy to devote myself full time to this position. And I assure you that on day one, I will begin building an effective team that is held accountable for our goals. You will receive regular updates from me, keeping you informed of what's happening in town. And I want to reiterate that I will be fully available and visible to meet with you, to hear your concerns and ideas, and I promise you that I will always keep the voice of our citizens at the forefront of our decision-making process. I look forward to working with the entire council to build unity in the town so that we can alleviate the factions that exist and all work together to make Colonial Beach great again. So I thank you very much for your time and attention this evening. I ask that as you cast your votes this year, that you carefully consider who will be best for this town. And I hope that you'll ask for yourself, do you want to avoid some of the politics that are currently occurring and misguided priorities that have been expressed? If your answer is yes, and you're ready for a positive change and having an elected official who will put the citizens of this town first by implementing sound business principles, then I ask that you vote for me, Mike Fitzpatrick, to be the mayor and leader of Colonial Beach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Ms. Schick, 5 minutes closing.
Go ahead. I want to thank you for taking your time to get informed on these issues tonight, to see perspectives from two different candidates. And I hope you appreciate the understanding that I have of the budget, of the process, and the commitment that I've given my life to in the last 10 years. Because it's meant a lot to me. And I'd like to continue to make a commitment to you and my community for everything that you've done for me. I'd like to see a mayor that has that kind of commitment to you and is at all the meetings, that understands where we've come through step by step. That's important. I understand the transparency issues. I also understand that we need to get things done, that we cannot sit and hash the same cycle of rhetoric over and over again. I look forward to working with the new council. I think there's a lot of good things to come in the next 4 years, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Improving the quality of life in Colonial Beach means balancing needs, not just stormwater or roads, but many things. Prioritizing projects, something that I implemented on town council as soon as I got here in 2019. We do a public meeting now every year. This is the first time that has ever happened, where we prioritize projects with urgency, contract deadlines, greatest impact, least time and effort, and things that had to be done before other things. You can't just say this is my #1 priority and we'll get it done. That's just not the way municipal government works. It's important to have somebody who understands how municipal government works in order to accomplish the goals that we have set forward in Colonial Beach. We need to stay on track. There are many things that we've been working on, that we've been working diligently on, that town staff has been working very hard on, that we are just on the brink of accomplishing. I am more than just some controversy on Eleanor. I have dedicated planning commission experience with many different viewpoints, and I can work with people of all types. I have been trained in municipal development, in community development, in architecture, in every part of building and development that there is, and in small business. I understand the frustrations, the needs that our community has. I am invested. My family is invested. I have generations here, and I am motivated. I am so motivated that even while pregnant, my peers elected me to be vice mayor 2 years in a row. And I care about Colonial Beach. I love my drifters, I love my school, I love my community, and we're all family here, and that's what's most important. I appreciate your consideration to vote for me as mayor. I appreciate your time tonight, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Please visit my website, robin4cb.com, for a lot more information about me, and also I'll be at Colonial Buzz on Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. if you have more questions or want more details or would like to, meet me in person. Thank you, and I guess have a good night.
Thank you, Mrs. Schick. Now, if we get a round of applause for both candidates.
Thank you all for coming. Wow, what a sea of audience this is. This is terrific. And come tomorrow, we'll have an equally interesting and engaging forum for all of the 6 candidates who are running for town council members. Thank you again for coming in this evening. Have a safe evening and safe travel back home.